Hello, the doc is in. Welcome back to another chapter of One Piece. Chapter 1064, Egghead's Research Stratum. I haven't covered this in a little bit, but basically, we're on Egghead Island. Luffy and the gang got pressed by a Kuma bot. Bonnie could not handle herself looking at her dad, well, at least her dad's visage, basically threw the match and let them get hit, and we don't know what's going on with them. Not only that, but also Law is in combat with Blackbeard. They're just in combat with Blackbeard, so that's fun. And then the rest of the Straw Hats are apparently going to meet Vegapunk 1. So that's interesting. And that's pretty much everything for the last chapters, whatever. Let's get into this chapter. But before we start this chapter, let's talk about the cover page. Akaiji and Augur captured Pudding. The whole cover story that has been going on for a while in Whole Cake Island has finally, well, it seems concluded. And what people have been theorizing from way before, even before we figured out that it was Germa that invaded or whatever, Aokiji has captured Pudding, and now she belongs to Blackbeard, which is, there's a lot of things that come along with that, but we'll touch on that later. For right now, the chart starts off proper with Blackbeard, Q, and Stronger coming in hot. Blackbeard's like, hey, don't do no running, because I came here for some poneglyph rubbings. Pass them over. And Law's not feeling the vibes. He's like, hey, if you want to take my poneglyph rubbings, you gotta take them out of my cold, dead hands. So he tells his men, he's like, hey, get ready. All right, bring the boat up. We're throwing hands right now. And Law starts off by using Room Amputate and slices Stronger in half, causing Blackbeard to fall off the horse and Q by extension, and he retaliates by using a Quake Crash in the air, giant bubble. All of Law's crew feels the Quake energy, and they start getting falling to the ground or being brought to their knees or whatever. And Doc Q's like, hey, Stronger, don't die on me now. You've been such a good horse all your life. And so I guess he decides that also in retaliation to Law's attack and the rest of Law's crew, he throws his candied bomb apples, and he throws them. They start exploding, but who I believe is Sachi then swallows the bombs, I think, or at least maybe sucks them in, then blows them out away from the rest of the crew. How he does this, not a clue. I assume it's not a devil fruit. It's kind of implied that it's not a devil fruit because him and Penguin are seen swimming underwater. But yeah, apparently Law's crew is not completely useless. Who would have guessed? Anyway, so Doc Q's kind of surprised, and who I believe is Sachi kind of is like, oh, well, we've been growing up with Law, in those harsh seas of the North Blue. Of course we're not trash. This is very clearly retconning. As far as I know, they've been trash. But maybe they're just not trash in the water, because it's specified that they're like very strong in the water. But anyway, Sachi and Penguin then start going over to Blackbeard's ship, and they're planning on sinking it, right? And Beppo then tells John Bart to protect the captain because Augur is trying to fire on him. And so John Bart gets in the way. He takes a hit. It doesn't seem like he actually gets damaged too bad or whatever. And the battle between Blackbeard and Law continues, and Law decides to go for a Shock Willy, pierce, boom, internal damage. Blackbeard is he's falling from the sky at this point. I mean, he takes extra pain, so that shit hurt like hell. And so Augur's like, he's basically disapproving. He's like, this is what happens when you just hop into stuff without no prep. So he teleports over there, and he's like, hey, you want to get back on the ship and get out of here? And Blackbeard's like, whoa, I don't do no retreating shit. All right, we pressing this man, so we're going to keep pressing him. And so he lands on the ground, and Law and Blackbeard come face to face, and Law's talking a little shit. He's like, hey, it seems like your whole crew got devil fruits. I mean, how does it feel to have a whole bunch of anchors on your team. And Blackbeard's like, hey, they're called Devil Fruits for a reason. I love the deal I made. Don't worry about it. And so the fight continues, and then we cut to the Blackbeard ship, and there's a giant explosion. It's like, oh, they're trying to sink us, whatever. It seems like that's kind of the play with the Heart Pirates. And we actually get a look inside Blackbeard ship. It seems like they got a couple of prisoners, or maybe they have one prisoner, and then the rest of the people on Blackbeard's crew look like prisoners. And Pudding's there, and basically she's like, oh, if mom is still alive, she's gonna find me and she's gonna kill all of you. And the prisoners are kind of like, well, the person who killed your mom is who they're fighting or whatever. But I imagine Pudding's like, well, is what it is. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And we get away from that, and we have Law and Blackbeard having a clash. I assume Conqueror's lightning hitting against each other, and we have Blackbeard as he hits with the Quake Fruit on Law's sword, then activating Black Vortex. Not a good sign. But we cut away. You have the Marines reacting. You have Akainu being like, damn, the two Yonko tier people, because basically Law's a Yonko in a sense. They're fighting again, and ain't shit I really can do. Being a Fleet Arrow sucks dick. And we cut away again. We go back to Egghead, and we meet up with Luffy and the gang, and basically we have them talking. Luffy's like, oh, I kind of feel bad. Well, no, he's not like I feel bad, but he's like, oh, that's not your dad. That's a pacifista. I understand it's a little hard, but we kind of need to kick the shit out of these guys because, they can be a huge problem. Also, why'd you make me so old? Then Bonnie doesn't say anything. Then Chopper's kind of like, oh, have a heart, Luffy. That's still, that person still looks like her dad. And then Jinbei agrees. He's like, hey, whatever, I can understand it. But then Jinbei's kind of like, well, when that all being said, though, Bonnie, your dad, as far as I know, is a piece of shit. He's a tyrant. Then he became a pirate. Then to avoid having the life sentence before being a part of the Revolutionary Army for a little bit. Then we have him becoming a science experiment, whatever, basically breaking down the whole timeline of things. And Bonnie's basically like, she doesn't understand why Kuma made the choices he did. She feels like, hey, I understand why he would choose to be a warlord and just work for the government, but turning himself into a mindless cyborg is basically just a death sentence in her mind. Same death sentence that he was trying to avoid. And Jinbei's like, well, much of either way, I wonder what exactly Kuma did to deserve the life sentence. And Bonnie's basically like, he never committed any crimes, all right? He's a good man, and he hates the government. And it turns out that Bonnie's actually holding basically a lightsaber, and when she's saying this, she's yelling and slaps the ground or whatever and melts some stuff. Luffy's all surprised, all that stuff. And it seems like right after this, they all get turned back to their normal ages. And Bonnie basically says she feels like, oh, Vegapunk's a murderer. And it actually is mentioned as she's kind of going on this rant about how, she wants to save her dad or whatever, that Kuma is from a special race. I mean, that kind of would explain why he's so big and like why he looks the way he does. But on the other hand, I'm like, what race? You gotta tell me he's a Lunarian? Because that man's black. You know what they do with those black people. I'm just saying. But anyway, we cut away from that, and then we come to the main crew, and basically we have the giant robot taking them to the main Egghead Island. They get to see like the giant monsters or whatever, and we find out more about this robot as anti-grav abilities or power or whatever. It's, like I said, very sciencey stuff. We're gonna get like a whole bunch of science stuff. We get to have the whole crew reacting to everything, and as they're getting described, like, oh, this is the land of the future, everything's all sciencey, the boots fit to your leg, to your feet or whatever, a lot of stuff. And we get the new outfits for the crew. I think, okay, well, Nami and Robin, peak. Sanji, not bad. I don't know if I feel the shorts, but I'm not hating it. Usopp, Peak, Frankie. Frankie just looks like Frankie. He actually doesn't look particularly different, but I guess you could say that's partly because, you know, he's modeled after Vegapunk stuff anyway, well, his old stuff at least. So it's kind of like, you know, it would mesh well. And so they're all talking about each other's outfits or whatever, and they're coming into the main lab and whatever. Cool. We get to see Vega 1, and he's talking about how, you know, being this smart kind of sucks. So you get to see the, well, kind of like can predict the future or whatever. And he's like, you know, I'm gonna die soon, but he's like, before I die, I need to tell you some things. Dragon. End the chapter, break next week. Kind of sad, but oh my god, this chapter is packed. So, things to discuss. First off, Aokiji definitely works for Blackbeard. Big news. Captured Pudding. Bigger news. But will Pudding get away? Now that's interesting, because really that really says is, hey, does Blackbeard come out of this fight on top or on the bottom? Draw again? Like, what's the deal? Because it seems like Blackbeard's making huge plays. He's like, alright, I'm gonna chase down one of these guys who beat down Kaido and Big Mom. I'm gonna get the rubbings. I got somebody who can possibly read the poneglyphs. Like, he's getting a lot of stuff together right now, which is huge. If he wins this fight, is been theorized, and it's possible that Blackbeard could literally just be able to go to Laugh Tale after this, because it's theorized that the last poneglyph, no one really knows where it is at the moment. It's possible that Blackbeard knows where it is, or has even already gotten it. So theoretically, if Law loses, that could be game. That could literally be good game, GG's. I'm king of the pirates, which is interesting. Then beyond that, we have the fight between Blackbeard and Law. Honestly, we don't have to touch on too much of it. It is interesting that Law's crew is not completely useless. Again, that is definitely a retcon. I will not believe otherwise. Definitely changed between last chapter and this chapter. They got a power up. They're not gonna make me believe otherwise. But Law using the amputee ability, I'm not sure if he used that before. It's kind of mentioned that might be a Awaken ability, which would make sense, because I don't think he's ever used amputee before. But nonetheless, cool fight between Blackbeard and Law. Law's looking pretty good, but Blackbeard's not no slouch, even though he's kind of taking a lot of damage, but he always takes a lot of damage. I don't know who's gonna win. It really could go either way. I could actually see it going either way, realistically, but I wouldn't be surprised if Blackbeard gets the dub, just to make him look more imposing as a threat and give the Straw Hats more reason to want to fight Blackbeard, because they're friends with Law. So if Law gets beaten up and even killed, ooh, if he gets killed, peak manga. But nonetheless, that would be definitely like good motivation for the Straw Hats. Moving on from that, we have Akainu, not really an important part. Then we have the Luffy gang part. Nothing too crazy in there. We kind of already knew that there may be some more stuff going on with Kuma in terms of like him actually being evil, because he joins the revolutionaries even though he was a tyrant, and therefore somebody who Dragon would have wanted to liberate the people of. So there's maybe more to it, maybe more to the deal he made with Vegapunk, because we still don't know why Vegapunk made him into a cyborg that was going to help the Straw Hats in any way, which logically you would say doesn't make sense if he's supposed to just be strictly a robot for the government and only for the government. So that's definitely interesting, but it does seem like Bonnie's pretty hell-bent on killing Vegapunk. Obviously Vegapunk's like a bunch of different people, which is a different thing, and it seems like he has a main body at somewhere on this island, so that should be, you know, that's one direction we're going in. Then we get the rest of the Straw Hats. Their part, not too important. It's just catching them up to speed, getting them on Egghead, all that stuff. But it does seem like they're going to meet Vega 1. And in reference to Vega 1, it seems like he has direct contact with Dragon, which may be through Kuma, which is interesting. This also could be a big part of the reason why Aegis Zero is coming to kill all the Vegas, but there is also other reasons that were kind of mentioned by Aegis. yeah, like I said, very packed chapter, very good chapter. Break next week, so I don't know, maybe I might make a theory chapter next week. We'll see what happens. Anyway, with that all being said, leave a like if you like it, leave a dislike if you dislike, comment, just comment on any part of the chapter. I mean, what do you think of Law versus Blackbeard? Do you think Blackbeard's gonna come on top? Do you think Law's gonna come on top? Do you think Pudding's gonna be taken away from Blackbeard? Do you think she's gonna be kept by Blackbeard? Will Law die? Well, it does seem like Vega 1's working for the Revolutionaries in some capacity, but are all the Vegas working with the Revolutionaries, or are only some of them working with the Revolutionaries? Is Bonnie's dad actually evil, or is he kind of a chill person? What race is he? Is he Lunarian? I forgot to mention that in the chapter, but do you think he's Lunarian? I'll leave it in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this on One Piece along with other manga. I think I'll be adding I'm definitely going to be adding another manga soon. I just haven't decided what it's going to be, but we'll definitely be coming up. We'll definitely be having some changes on the channel to add more content. So if you want to see it, feel free to subscribe. And with that all being said, thank you for watching the video up to this point, or skipping to this point because you're a weird person. With it all being said, the doc is out.